Hi guys, this is Erin Stelter and this is week 5, video 2. And I'm going to be talking about the PDF that we had for this week, Superheroes, A Modern Mythology by Richard Reynolds. And I thought this was an interesting text, where he starts out by comparing Alan Moore's Watchmen to Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. Watchmen's one of my favorites. I think I say that a lot in here. But if you haven't read it, it's really good. You should read it. He has a really interesting cast of characters. And if you don't want to read it, there is an HBO series coming out in 2019 that looks like it's going to be pretty good. But to start for my comment, on page 105, Reynolds says, if the intention is to treat superheroes in a novelistic way, breaking away from continuity, why not start with a completely clean slate? He's saying kind of as Alan Moore did with Watchmen. And so I think what he's asking here is, both of these writers set out with their text to kind of satirize and critique the superhero genre. And I think both did so successfully within their texts. But as I mentioned earlier, Alan Moore kind of created this whole new cast of characters. These aren't existing superheroes that we've seen before. But he gives them some of those traits that we're used to. Some have superpowers, some don't. Some are, vigilantes. They're supervillains that they fight against, kind of all these tropes that we're used to, but with characters that we're not familiar with. And he uses those to critique the genre and kind of take it in a new direction. Whereas Frank Miller uses a very familiar character, Batman, to do something similar, and they both, kind of wanted to turn the superhero genre on its head. And so I think he kind of answers this question himself earlier in the text on page 103. He says, Batman is a sign invested with so many layers of meaning that each separate reversal of the use of that sign is an attention-grabbing narrative event. So I think what Reynolds is saying here is that Batman, the idea of Batman has become so ingrained for many of us. He is a symbol himself of, that vigilante justice and that kind of superhero. And so there's a lot that comes with that. And so Frank Miller, by using him as the main character and not creating a new one, he was able to build on all of that, and rather than starting from scratch, he's able to kind of start it on a deeper level. Like, we already have all this meaning associated with Batman, and then the supervillains and Superman. And so by reversing, as he says, any of their behaviors that we expect, these norms for them, it's more shocking and more meaningful. And so that's kind of what I took from that. And I thought that was a really interesting topic for discussion. And then, so keeping with the theme of signs and symbols, my question comes from page 102. Actually, I think on page 101, he says, deviance has become the norm. Consensus has been attacked to the point where there are no longer any clear normative values. And I think specifically in Dark Knight Returns, Gotham City has become overrun, where deviants are the norm. The criminals run the town. The average person is not necessarily a good person. And I think Frank Miller is kind of like reflecting how he saw society in Gotham City, or how it's going. But I think, and then back to page 102, he says, signs determine individuals as normal or deviant. So my question here is, I think the signs and symbols for deviants or the bad guys in Dark Knight Returns are kind of clear. You know, the bad guys wear makeup or masks, or they alter their look in some way. Even Batman, who is a vigilante, could be considered a deviant because he's, you know, he's not necessarily on the same side as the law. He's kind of running parallel to it. But so in also another example is the mutants and how they dress and how they talk. Those are all symbols of their deviant nature. So I think in Dark Knight Returns, the more difficult quality to identify would be normal. And so that's my question, 30 minutes later, is what are some of the signs and symbols that you guys have seen in Dark Knight Returns that would indicate someone was normal? So I look forward to hearing your answers, and I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will not talk to you later because this is our last video. Thanks. Bye.